Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to leaders who multiply value to others. I'm Mark Cole, and today John Maxwell is sharing a lesson on the value of going first. In fact, in today's lesson, John's going to make a quote. He's going to quote Dr. Seuss, who says, "You have to be odd to be number one." Let me just say that again for all you odd people out there. Maybe you're already number one, because if you're going to be number one, you have to be odd. My goal and John's goal in today's episode is to make you odd. It is to get you to think like a number one player, like getting started first. I'll be back when John's done teaching, and I'll help you apply what we learned from John in both your life and your leadership. If you would like to download the free bonus resource for this episode or watch the episode on YouTube, go to maxwellpodcast.com/going first. Now, I get to introduce to you today somebody that after 25 years of working alongside of John Maxwell, he knows what going first looks like. Grab your pen, grab your piece of paper. John's going to help you go first.
There's a lot of comparisons between going first and people thinking you're crazy. In fact, I want to talk about it in a moment because honestly, I have been there. I've had people look at me and misunderstand me. I've had people look at me and say, "What are you trying to do? I can't figure it out." And so I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to talk about the value of going first, because the issue is not you're not crazy. It's just the fact that you went first. And if you go first, they haven't seen it before. They've not experienced it before. And all of a sudden they say, "What are you doing?" So there are three thoughts that I want to give you about when you're first. When you're first, what happens? Number one, when you're first, you get out of the people pile. Now, the people pile is huge. The people pile is just where all the people are. It's the long line. It's the mass. And when I was in my young 30s, Robert Schuller, who at that time was the pastor of the Crystal Cathedral, took me under his wings at 33. He found out about me, and he liked me, and he started mentoring me. And the first lesson that Robert Schuller shared with me is, he said, "John," he said, "you want to step out, stand up, and set yourself apart from others." And then he challenged me. He said, "You've got to find out what makes you unique. Well, you got to find out what makes you different." And what he was talking about was getting out of the people pile. And whenever we're trying to find out what makes us unique, what makes us different, what sets us apart, what causes us to stand up and stand out, when we do that, it feels very awkward. It's not comfortable. We've never tried it before. We've never been there before. It's all new. It's virgin territory. But if we can find out that uniqueness, that difference, it gets us out of this pile of people. And so I just love this statement. Always be a first-rate version of yourself instead of a second-rate version of someone else. Wow, that's so good. Be a first-rate version of yourself. What sets you apart? Now, what you got to understand is, in this teaching, is that if you do what I'm saying, you will be misunderstood, and that's a fact. So I'm trying now to develop a mindset for you. I'm trying to help you understand what I think. Responsibility of a leader is to help people define reality. Once you ask yourself that question and truly start to get out of the people pile, I promise you'll be misunderstood. Dr. Seuss said, "You have to be odd to be number one." And I've always loved that statement. And you are odd, not in the fact of odd in a negative way, but you're odd in the fact that people have never seen it before. Now, here's what I want you to understand. In getting out of the people pile, and being the first, you have to understand two things. That persistent pays off. If you're persistent, that persistence pays off in the long run. You got to stay the course, and consistency compounds. Now, you've heard me talk about consistency compounds. You've heard me talk about persistence pays. But those two together really allow you to be the only. There is an until, U-N-T-I-L. There is an until waiting for you. Let me explain. You'll be misunderstood until you're not. Persistence pays. Consistency compounds. You'll be outside until you're inside. You'll be suspect until you're celebrated. You'll be rejected until you're accepted. You'll be underestimated until you're unstoppable. Don't miss this. You have to understand, in the beginning, you'll be misunderstood until you're understood. But if you're not persistent, and if you're not consistent, you'll never get through that until. You'll never get on the other side. Which side of the under? You've got to be on the back side of the until, not on the front side. So, being first gets you out of the people pile. When you're first, the second thing that happens to you is you begin to discover your potential. You begin to look at yourself and say, oh my, I had no idea that I could do this, and I had no idea that I could be this. And this point is a huge one. I don't want you to miss it. As you step out and are first, you become a pioneer. And a pioneer goes where people haven't gone, does what people haven't done, and says what people haven't said. Here's what I want you to catch, because I'm talking about going first, you discover your potential. You're a pioneer. You've never been there before. You've never seen it before. This is brand new territory. You're a pioneer. You're breaking new ground. You see, the big decision dilemma is this. Do I need to know it all before I go? Or do I go before I know it all? That's the big decision dilemma. I'm going to repeat it. Do I need to know it all before I go, or do I go before I know it all? You see, we're talking about two kinds of clarity. Front-end clarity and back-end clarity. Front-end clarity says, I've got to know it all before I start. Well, can I tell you something? You'll never start. You can't answer questions to things that you haven't yet experienced. So if you have to have clarity on the front end, you'll never start. But if you understand, I've got to act on what I know, which is very little compared to what I don't know, but I got to act on what I know. The moment that I say that, I got to act on what I know. It's little compared to what I don't know. But if I act on the little that I know, I'm going to discover the things I don't know. So what happens is, if you start with a little clarity, what you kind of know, you need to maybe take that first step. It turns into clarity on the back end. So when you step out and take that action, things begin to clear up. See, you'll never know how far you can go until you go. And when you go, you'll realize that you're never going to get to the end. So this is huge. You never know how far you can go until you go. And then when you go, you never know how far you have to go till you get there, because there's no finish line. So when you're first, you get out of the people pile. And when you're first, you discover your own potential. In other words, all of a sudden you say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. This is huge. And thirdly, when you go, you increase your odds of winning. How do we win? By getting started. You can win any race against any person if you get a big enough head start. And that's the power of going first. That's the first puts you in a position to win that race. And by the way, let me just say this. I don't think first is best as far as, in fact, I think if you're a pioneer, somebody will come in behind you and do much better than you, because after a while, you started off, you didn't even have a path. You didn't even know the way. Once you're a pioneer and you start marking the way, there are other people, and by the way, when they come behind you, they're going to come faster. They're going to come with more confidence. They're going to come more successfully. Why? Because you've paved the way for them. You have contributed to their success. So pioneers never end up being the best, but they provide the opportunity for other people to improve and be better. Remember this, average people get very uncomfortable when you rise above average. Average people want you to be average. If you're average and they're average, they can stay in their comfort zone and be average and never have to answer why they're average. But the moment that you start going first, and the moment that you start building, and the moment that you get out of the people pile, the moment that you begin to increase your odds of winning, all of a sudden it makes them uncomfortable because they look at you and they say, oh my gosh, look at them where they are and what they're doing and how did they get there and does that mean I have to go? So in reality, when I gave you those three things, the value of starting first, what I was doing is I was being your friend. What I was saying to you is very simple. The only way that you'll ever get out of the people pile is to be unique, to be different. How do I set myself apart? How do I stand up? How do I stand out? It's the only way. But if you're first, you can get yourself out of the people pile. You will be misunderstood in that process. Remember, you got that until. You got to get on the right side of it. Are you on the left side of until or on the right side of until? But once you do that, you begin, because you're going first, you begin to discover what your potential is, and you begin to increase your odds of winning. What do I say about leaders? They see more than others see, and they see before others see. Seeing before others see is a distinct advantage because you get started first. First is a good thing. You got to ask yourself, where am I unique? What sets me apart? What is decidedly different in me that will cause people to kind of look and say, oh my gosh, look what they're doing? If you can answer that question, and then you can say, okay, I'm going to get started in that area. And don't be discouraged. You're never good the first time. It's all right. You practice it, be consistent, be persistent. It'll take you to where you want to go.
If you're ready to stop drifting and start growing, the Maxwell Growth Plan is your next step. This year-long journey guides you through 4 powerful seasons of growth, from building self-awareness to clarifying your purpose to strengthening your leadership. Each season includes reflection prompts, action steps, plus live teaching and Q&A calls with John C. Maxwell. It's personal development with a plan. Start your journey today by visiting maxwellpodcast.com/growth plan. That's maxwellpodcast.com/growth plan.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Did y'all hear that? John says, if you get started and be consistent, you can get where you want to go. It's kind of how John wrapped his teaching today, is this promise. I believe it's a promise that has prompted you to be on this podcast today. I believe it's a promise that it causes all of us to aspire, to learn, to grow, to do, to act. And that is this belief that there's greatness. There's the best within each one of us. And we pursue it to become the best for those around us. Simon Sinek said, leaders are the ones who have the courage to go first, to put themselves at personal risk, to open up a path for others to follow. I believe this lesson today that John's taught us is a pathway to greatness and a pathway that will allow others to follow us to that greatness. John made another quote in the lesson. I hope you caught it. I want to give it to you. By the way, again, I want to tell you, if you will go get the bonus resource and put that in front of you, it will serve as a reminder throughout the week of what 1 thing, 2 things, no more than 3 things you can apply to get the return from this podcast that I want you to have. But John said this in his teaching. I don't think we even have this in our notes, but he says, you will be underestimated until the point you're unstoppable. And then everybody begins to re-estimate you. My goal for you today in this podcast is to really not only teach you what John's taught us, and that is the value of going first, but I really want to share with you on how to become unstoppable to the point that people will note it, that people will embrace it, and that people will follow it. because I believe there is followership. There is attributes within you worth following on the path to greatness for those around you. So I want to pull out, as I like to do when I'm the only one kind of debriefing and applying John's content, I like to pull 2 or 3 kind of big ideas or big points that John taught in the lesson. And today I'm going to do the same thing. And the first point that I want to pull out is I want to pull out what he said at the very beginning, the quote, really by his friend Robert Schuller, who said, "Step out, stand up, and set yourself apart from others." Let me say that again. Step out, stand up, and set yourself apart from others. Now, I've got to put a disclaimer on this, and I will come back and I'm going to take each 3 kind of commands of that quote by Robert Schuller, taught by John Maxwell, and really inspired John Maxwell to be who he is today. I'm gonna come back to that 3-part little command after I remind you of the point John says. He says, when you step out, when you stand up, when you set yourself apart, you will be misunderstood. So here's the asterisk. Here's the small print of today's podcast. Put this in place. Apply this podcast. Become a poster child of this podcast. And guess what? Here's the promise. Here's the guarantee. Here's the small print. You're going to be misunderstood. You're going to be seen, as Dr. Seuss said, as odd. There's your promise. Anybody listening with your team right now, and you just kind of look over at the teammate you're listening to and say, yep, they've arrived. If you're not watching my podcast, I'm pointing to the person to my left, the person to my right. They've arrived. They're odd. I work with greatness. You're going to be misunderstood. Because I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story as I teach this first point, this first standout point. And I'm going to share with you how odd I was to those around me. When Robert Schuller challenged John to step out, here's how John took that. Step out is the ability to embrace being singled out as paying too much of a price, of doing too many wonderful things that others don't want to do, of try to get yourself noticed so you can get to the top. You're going to be questioned at every turn on your journey to step out. In fact, here's a question I want to ask you as I challenge you to step out. When is the last time you asked for something and was genuinely surprised when you heard the word yes? Here's what I'm asking you. When was the last time you asked for something so bold, something so far-fetched, something so unattainable, that when somebody said, yes, you can have that. Yes, I will help you. Yes, this is going to be something that I deliver to you. You were so surprised because you believed there was a 1 chance in 1,000 that you would hear yes. That's the boldness I'm trying to get you to right now. I can remember at 33, my story here at Maxwell Leadership. This was 22 years ago. I remember putting on a sheet of paper 42 things that were so bold that if I'd have gotten one of those 42 things in the next 12 years, which was my window, I would have been blown away. One of those was as a telesales representative. I determined at 33, teledialing phone call for people to come to a Maxwell event. I determined at 33 that I was going to set my sights on the idea of leading the organization where I was a telesales representative. I can remember showing that to people and them laughing. I can remember my band of brothers, the people that was supposed to believe in me the most, when I shared with them my 42 things, they shook their head and said, Mark, this is crazy. Things like a 10 times multiple. Things like multiple pieces of real estate that I would own. A mountain home, a beach home, a regular home. I can remember boldly stating things that I wanted to acquire, both in accomplishment, both in spiritual maturity, and both in just financial success. And I remember showing that to the people and they were going, that'll never happen. I stood out. I was talked about like I was odd. And I can remember at 42 years of age, 3 years sooner than what I had put on my paper, of being asked by John Maxwell to be the CEO of his company. I've got to be honest with you, my first thought probably was not as pure and wonderful as it should have been. So grateful, so humbled. I can't believe it. My first thought might have been, in the words of the great theologian Toby Keith, how do you like me now? It was this concept of, I thought something so big, so grand, so incredible, that if I would accomplish it, I would be surprised when John Maxwell said, will you be my CEO? Now, it was on a paper 10 years before. It was on a piece of paper that I wanted, but I got to be honest with you, when he asked me, I went, oh my. I can remember when John Maxwell asked me to succeed him in ownership of our corporate companies, and I went, now I wanted that. I told my wife that I wanted that. I told people around me that I wanted the chance and the opportunity to do it, but I got to be honest with you, I was really surprised by stepping out and saying that when the answer was yes. What is your last time you put something so bold in the universe? You put something so bold in your faith in believing that God would give you the desires of your heart that you were surprised when you got it. If that's been some time, can I challenge you today? Go ask for something so audacious that you will be blown away when the answer is yes. That's what step out means. Let me tell you what stand up means. Stand up, the question I want to ask you is this. When is the last time you took a position on something no one else had taken? Maybe you are politically leaning one way and your whole ecosphere, your whole support group is telling you you've got to believe X, you've got to do this, you got to walk this party line. And just for once, will you step up and be different than the people around you? Will you do me a favor and just stand up for something that you deeply believe in rather than following something you barely believe in? I'm ready for the deeply believing people, not the barely believing people. I'm inspired by somebody that will stand up for something that no one else around them is standing up for. Could that be a trajectory, my friends, that leaders that know how to, yes, step out and say something and ask for something so bold will also stand up and do something so bold that will inspire a generation behind them, not a team, not a family. I want you to inspire your team and your family and all that. I'm ready. I'm looking for people in this lesson that want to inspire an entire generation. And then John talks about this, and we're going to spend more time at the close of the podcast today about set apart from others, set apart, being unique. And again, I'll wrap up with that talk, but here's the question I want to ask you about being set apart. What is one thing or one discipline you are willing to do even if no one else will do it? Maybe you're in a family that you just have not had healthy choices around you, and maybe there's not healthy food options, or maybe there's not a propensity to work out, and there's health issues that are in your family, and you're realizing, you know what? I've got to set myself apart, and I'm going to live a disciplined life that no one around me is modeling. Again, we'll talk more about setting yourself apart in my last little point, but I really desire you today to step up. Ask for something so big you'll be surprised when it's a yes. I asked you to stand up. Stand for something that no one else around you is standing for, and I asked you to set yourself apart. Do something. Create a discipline that no one around you is even attempting. The second standout point that John had in his lesson today that really impacted me, I hope it impacted you as well, is this idea that acting on what you know leads to discovering what you don't know. Oh, isn't it true that especially John has credited me many years as being one of the most dedicated leaders ever been on his team for the law of navigation. That's one of the 21 laws that says a leader, anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. And John would say that about me, and he'd say, Mark Cole, he does the law of navigation so well. I appreciate that compliment, but you know that compliment sometimes puts an Achilles heel or exposes an Achilles heel in my leadership. And that is, there comes a time in all of our leadership that we need to act on what we know so that it will lead us to discover what we don't know. It's the leaders that really don't see themselves as a business leader. Yours truly, again, if you're watching this podcast, you see me raising my hand. I'm not a leader that set out and said, I think I can run multi-million-dollar companies, much less 7 of them. But when I set out on what I did know, it led me to what I didn't know. And today I do try to give you application on a podcast, but when I'm done with this podcast, I'll run upstairs to my office and I'll make some big decisions, million-dollar decisions today, on how to best direct these companies that I'm leading into the future. I didn't start out thinking I knew that. I started out knowing that I knew how to lead, and that led me to what I didn't know, which was I had greater capacity in me to lead at a greater level. By the way, so do you. My good friend Chris Robinson, he's on this podcast every once in a while. You know Chris, if you're a regular podcast listener. He's the ambassador of our Maxwell leadership team. We have 57,000 certified coaches in 169 countries. And Chris is kind of the voice, the champion, the ambassador of those coaches and leads so well. Chris has a statement that he teaches all the time to our thousands and thousands of coaches. He says, learn a little, do a little. Learn a little, do a little. And I love how he teaches. He teaches it so much better than me. But what Chris is really saying is you need to have a posture to pick up something and then put it into practice. You need to have a posture of learn a lesson, begin to demonstrate that lesson. What Chris is teaching us is really right here in acting on what you know leads to discovering what you don't know. In fact, I believe that this whole point, this whole takeaway from John really can be distilled into 3 actions of how you can control these 3 actions, and it'll lead you to things that you never thought you would discover. Are you ready for it? Are you ready for 3 simple things that'll literally help you uncover things you didn't even know you had access to? Here it goes. Stop running for a minute. Step off the treadmill. Grab this. It's not complicated, but it is not easy to apply either. Here it is. Always act, always learn, always improve. Always act, always learn, always improve. You go, Mark, I'm the CEO of a company. I run 7 companies. What do I have to learn? If you are not always learning, you're not always improving. If you're not always improving, you can't act and put action into place at the next level. You have become plateaued in your leadership. The only way I know that John Maxwell at 78 is better today than he was the last 10 years, the 10 years before that, the 10 years before that, is because he's always acting. He's always on the move. He's always learning. There's always a lesson. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And he's always improving. He never is successful and feels accomplished at today's performance. There's always something to improve. So I will tell you this. If you'll always act, you'll always learn, you'll always improve. That is the launching pad to the next level of success. You want to go, no matter how successful you are, we have extremely brilliant, successful leaders that listen to this podcast. We have people that are just getting started. No matter where you are in your success continuum, no matter where you are in your success plateau or your success climb, if you'll act today, if you'll learn something today, if you'll improve something today, there's the next level of success ahead of you. Final point, and I'll have to teach this quick because I'm running out of time, but the final point that I want to share with you that I took from John's lesson today is how every leader needs to figure out how to get out of the people pile through uniqueness. John started the lesson, in fact, by saying you've got to get out of the people pile. If you printed the bonus resource like I did, which is right here in front of you viewing it today, his first point is you got to get out of the people pile. And then he goes into the Robert Schuller quote that I broke down for us. But I just want to break down for a minute what John means when he says get out of the people pile through uniqueness. I will tell you that the reward I have of leading the companies, and I've referenced my story multiple times in today's podcast, but it's an incredible privilege. It's a distinct honor. I'm blown away at what I get to do and call it a job because it's a calling. It is a sense of fulfillment. It is a purpose, my purpose in life. But I sit here today not because I'm brilliant. You guys already know that. Listen to the Southern drawl that I have. I don't say this because I can put all of my words together beautifully and move you with my words. God didn't gift me with that, and I haven't had the discipline to even sometimes know the difference between don't and doesn't. What is unique about me is a work ethic that I created and an awareness of what leaders around me needed that put me at the forefront of everyone's thinking when the next opportunity arose. I say it often. Linda Eggers, John Maxwell's executive partner for the last 35 plus years, is the reason I sit here today. Because John would need something and she'd say, have you thought about Mark? John would be thinking about accomplishing something and she'd go, well, I think Mark could probably do that. See, somebody that noticed my availability and my passion to get things done and my awareness of how important John Maxwell's desires were kept putting me in front of the leader and his forefront of his thinking. That's because I determined many, many years ago, I was 33. I determined I wanted to get out of the people pile and be unique so that I would be the last man standing of John Maxwell's leaders around him throughout the years. And today I sit here because of two elements that I take away from John's point number 3, which is getting out of the people pile through uniqueness. Number 1 is getting out. So let's break this apart. This takeaway point, getting out of the people pile through uniqueness. The first break I want to do is getting out. The second break will be through uniqueness. And I'm just going to give you just a couple of action points around both of those that I want you to do. To get out, to be unique. On getting out, I want to tell you, you've got to get frustrated. Now you go, Mark, you tell me all the time, be powerful, positive change, and lead well. And now you're sitting here in this podcast saying, get frustrated. And yes, I am saying that. Get frustrated. Hope has 2 wonderful daughters. Frustration at the way things are and courage to do something about it. Hope that we can do something and courage to actually do something. That really is rooted in frustration. Are you frustrated with today's level of success? I want you to be grateful. Can you believe what we get to do? Can you believe that we have tools like podcasts to make ourselves better? But are you frustrated to the point you want to do something about it? That frustration is going to challenge you to get out of the people pile. A second point that I want to just tell you is get determined. Frustration will get you out of the people pile. Determination will keep you out of the people pile. I want you to get out of the people pile, but guess what? I want you to stay out of the people pile. And then resilience is the third thing, and that will keep you from going back to the people pile or finding a new people pile. Frustration will get you out. Determination will keep you out. Resilience will keep you from getting back in one. And I want to challenge you that there has got to be a mindset in going first that says, I'm frustrated that I'm not first and I'm going to find a way to be first. I'm determined that I'm going to be first, and I'm resilient that I'm going to stay first in my life. The second part of this whole point of getting out of the people pile through uniqueness is all about asking 3 questions. What's needed? What's different? And what's trending? What's needed is all about sensing what is it that would give me the leg up to be unique. It's what our good friend Linda Kaplan-Thaler did when she went to meet Warren Buffett and found out that he loved Diet Dr. Pepper. And so what did she do? She took a Diet Dr. Pepper to her 15-minute meeting with Warren Buffett and got an hour-and-a-half meeting with him because she planned ahead and said, I'm going to find out he needs a Diet Dr. Pepper in our meeting. What's needed in your world that you can deliver in a unique way? What's different about you? It's question number 2. What's different about you? Well, what was different about me is I found a way that with hard work and availability, I could catch the attention of the people that held the keys to my growth trajectory. And I began to make myself different in everybody else around me. The third thing that, yes, what's trending? What's trending? And for me, what was trending at that point, now, by the way, this was 20 years ago. We didn't use words like trending. So I get that this is a new way, but there was things that mattered and things that was popular and things that took people and made them take note of you. What was trending? And when I will tell you, as I began my climb to stand out and get out of the people pile, what was trending was a passion to be available to the leader and to be accessible to that leader. I wish I had time. Maybe I'll teach it in a future podcast. But there is a way that you can focus and begin to build your uniqueness. But I think it comes in finding out what matters to you. John teaches, I brought it to the studio today in anticipation of teaching you. John teaches in the book, Developing the Leader Within You. By the way, let's put this in the show note and let people pick up this book. Jake, we'll give some kind of a discount. It'll be in the show notes. But in this book, in chapter 2, John Maxwell talks about priorities, and he talks about the 3 R's to your uniqueness. And that's where I'm driving the point home today. Your uniqueness is found in 3 questions you can ask of yourself. What's required of you, what gives you the greatest return, and what gives you the greatest reward. What's required of you is things that you don't have the ability to change in your life. You've got to deliver those. But those make you unique, because if you do them with excellence and you do them at the 1%, you will get noticed. What gives you the greatest return is being able to know with the finite time that you and I both have, we have the same amount of time. What can you do that gives you the greatest return with the hours and the time and the project that you have? What gives you the greatest return? And then the third question is always about what fulfills you, what makes you shine, what brings the light deep within you to the surface so we can all be illuminated with your greatness. That's the reward part. And so I'll challenge you just kind of as a next step today. If you want to find your uniqueness, go into this book, Developing the Leader Within You, and you'll find the things that are required of you. You'll be able to identify the things that give you a return, and you'll be able to identify the things that reward you for the life and the success that you want to have. Today, we're impacted with another listener comment that I want to share with you, and it's Sean. Sean talks about Adjust Your Way to Victory. That podcast really impacted Sean. And this is what Sean said. Mark, your lesson on forcing transformation and allowing technology to be your master and not the servant was right on time for me. I got great wisdom from this comment, created a resource to share with my community on clarity, and avoided what could have been a grave, embarrassing lesson. Sean said, thank you for sharing. Sean, thank you for listening. That's what I want to say. That both that podcast, Adjust Your Way to Victory, and also another podcast I think goes right along with today's podcast called 10 Traits Successful Leaders Possess, will be in the show notes that will help you continue the journey that this podcast episode started with you. And that is the journey to greatness, the journey to discover what's in you, the journey to challenge you to go first, so that those around you can be illuminated by your path and can find the greatness in them as well, because everyone deserves to be led well.
Hey, podcast listeners. Many of you listening right now would probably love the autonomy that comes with owning your own business or becoming a coach that helps other businesses succeed. Well, we have a phenomenal strategy where you are 100% in control of your own business, earning income on your own terms, and have access to the people, tools, and resources you need to build a thriving leadership development business. When you become a Maxwell Leadership Certified team member, You join a global community of entrepreneurs led by our expert team of mentors and faculty, including John C. Maxwell. You'll also get one of the top leadership certifications in the world next to your name, giving you the boost you need to get started. Visit us online at maxwellleadership.com/join the team to find out more.